We here for the latest, south side or the north side, not tuned to the greatest. Home team for the home teams, both sides got our own rings, on the mound or the long ball, but we don't put the wrong strings, yeah. It's that time of the year now, Wrigley or guarantee, so the whole league that we here now. New show with a new mood, discussions and interviews, trade rumors that might be, this is Pinwheels and Knife.
Hello, and welcome to the Pinwheels and Ivy podcast. I am Aldo, alongside with Kevin and Mitch. We are presented by Sports Mockery. Visit sportsmockery.com for the latest news on the Cubs, White Sox, Bears, Bulls, and Blackhawks. Catch all the latest stuff on baseball season right now. Mitch, every day on it. Great story talking about Michael Kopech's, another great outing from him against the Dodgers. And probably things are going to heat up in the summer months with some trade rumors. So definitely stick around for that on sportsmockery.com and all over social media at Sports Mockery. All right, boys. Let's start positive. Let's go to Michael Kopech. So I think this was his fourth consecutive start against just great teams. I think he had the Yankees back to back, the Blue Jays, who were hot when he faced them up in Toronto last week. Comes right back home after a great series win by the White Sox in Tampa Bay. And then he shuts down the Dodgers on Tuesday at home. So, Mitch, Michael Kopech, ace, right?
I would think so. I mean, he clearly the front runner. And this is what we all expected from Michael Kopech when they called him up. And a lot of people were worried, especially after he sat out 2020 with all the injuries. Does he want to pitch? Does he have that bulldog in him? And I think this year you're seeing he wants the ball in big spots. He's performing against the best teams in the league. The real turning point, or what I was most impressed by, was his start in Wrigley when he got pulled after 4 innings. And you could tell he was pissed. And not everyone has that in him. That's something you can't teach. So I like the fact he has that competitive mentality. And he's showing up against the best teams in baseball. And what was really impressive to me, especially coming off a terrible start in Toronto, probably his worst in the year. When I used to play golf in high school, like our coach would always look at like your worst hole, and then it wouldn't be that one, it'd be the hole right afterwards to see how you responded. And it was kind of the same thing with Michael Kopech facing a great Dodgers lineup, one of the best Dodgers, or one of the best lineups in baseball. They're averaging over 5 runs a game, and he shut them down. They looked baffled. He pounded the strike zone. So everything you could want from your starting pitcher, he did right there. It's been phenomenal, especially because a lot of these starts have come against first place teams.
Yep. I didn't watch his entire outing against the Dodgers, but I did watch the first, at least the first 4 innings of it. And you can obviously tell the difference in, the philosophies hitting wise, because I think Kopech was like in the 70 pitch range, like by the 4th inning. And then the guy that they had starting was Mitch White. Just makeup player from the Dodgers,
who also looked like an ace in that game. Yeah.
And like he was, I think at one point he was like through 4 innings, like at 44 pitches or 45 pitches. But that's what we've been seeing with Michael Kopech all year long. Even when he does have to battle through, and maybe he doesn't always have his best stuff, he still like hunkers down, and he'll still get you through 5-6 innings. And I mean, his ERA is below 2. He's had just that one bad start, really.
1.94 ERA this season.
Yeah,
and only 2 wins to show
job
for
by
it.
him. Yeah, he's the new. What's his name? He's the new Jose Quintana for you guys.
A more talented Jose Quintana, yes, absolutely.
Let's add in that part. Yeah. Kevin just had like a panic attack listening or hearing the name of Jose Quintana. My light just went out. I'm going to try to figure out what happened. Take it away, boys.
My dishwasher just screamed at me saying, "Use me instead of in the sink." You won't cut your hand. The thing about Kopech too is when you look at his numbers too, his whip is under 1. He's got a .94 whip, so he's not letting. I mean, obviously, I think Fergie Jenkins used to say it. He's like, I don't mind giving up home runs. I think actually at one point, Fergie Jenkins for the Cubs had the most individual home runs given up in a single season as a Cub record, and he was like, so what? Why? Because they're solo home runs. You don't allow base runners. Even those mistake pitches don't haunt you as much. And he's just dealing out there. I mean, his exit velocity from last year is actually up just a tick, but it's down over the course of his average of his career. His XBA, even for example, I mean, it's a 195. I mean, his expected slugging against him is 363 in his so you're looking at these numbers. He's been, he's given up maybe it's 38.7, so a little bit under 40% hard hit rate. He's not getting hit hard. And his K percentage is actually down, which means he's not just, we talk about missing barrels. And a lot of guys think that missing barrels means missing the bat. It's not necessarily that. It's pitching to softer contact. It's giving up non-barreled baseball. I mean, you can have you could miss a ton of barrels and not strike a single guy out. It's just you got a guy on his front foot, and on that 2 5/8 inch barrel in that diameter that they have. I mean, that's a lot of inches. I mean, 1 inch here, a half inch there makes a huge difference. So nobody's barreling him up, and even if he's not striking out as many guys as he has in the past, or his K percentage is down, but he's a pitcher now. His walk percentage is actually up a little bit over the course of his career numbers, but he's doing it in a manner. It's still not that high. I mean, he's got 51 Ks. So I mean, he's still doing the job. He's basically, it's a K an inning for him. And so a guy doing that, coming out of, it doesn't seem like he's come out of nowhere, because he was on my MLB The Show team, and he always constantly improved. And I used him a ton on my creative team. But seeing him perform, it's kind of those guys that came in without any pressure and expectation that are getting the job done. And you've got guys like Gio, who are struggling because they have this expectation laid at their feet. And it's great to see a guy like Kopech just go, "Hey, I exist, guys, and check me out. Here's my body of work," and he's doing it, and he's doing it well.
Yeah. And I love what you said about him becoming a pitcher this year too, because when coming up, it was always like the big arm. He had the big fastball. That's what he was known for. But like even last night when you watched him, he was getting ahead of hitters and he was keeping them on the attack. Like he had guys watching fastballs down the middle. He had people chasing his slider. They really had him off balance throughout the night. And he's had the fewest hits allowed by pitchers with 50 plus innings this year. Only 24 hits allowed, which is really speaks to how good he's been, because no one's been able to barrel him up. When he gets in trouble, it's with the walks. And I think the one bad start besides Toronto was against the Yankees, and that was all self-inflicted. I think it was 3 walks, a wild pitch, and a hit batter in that inning. And they ended up scoring 3 runs. And after that, he didn't allow a hit. So as long as he keeps guys off base with the walks, I mean, there's the guy could be in the Cy Young conversation if he hadn't had like the innings restrictions throughout the year. I don't know if he's going to have enough innings, but he's been dominant all year long.
I mean, that's pitching. I mean, Aldo, we're losing your audio. We don't have any Aldo audio. If you say that fast 3 times, right? But you're right though. Like that transition that you're seeing of a dude that's been able to rely on stuff against lesser competition is finding himself challenged with the big kids to be more than just a fireballer. He's learning to pitch. And it's fun to watch because you don't know that. That's the beautiful, weird thing about baseball is, a guy like, say, a Cubs example, you would look at a guy like Kyle Hendricks and say, no way. The guy couldn't break water, couldn't break a window with a fastball, but the dude figured out how to pitch to get outs. And when you see a guy that has stuff that, again, some of these guys, as a coach myself, you see it. These guys could go out there. I mean, we have I've had a guy that I coach that's pitching for A&M, right? We talked about him last week. So it's 99. He was throwing 98, 96, 97 at the high school level. You can go out there and just beat dudes. As long as you're throwing strikes and you're throwing that velocity, you're going to get outs and you have good stuff. But then when you get to the point where the athletes are actually adjusting and they're actually able to, they're actually as gifted as you are, or maybe more, you got to learn how to keep them off balance and make them just miss. And he is learning to pitch. And I think that's a testament to obviously the White Sox, coaching staff working with him again. I feel like the White Sox I think Katz, it's weird for me. I feel like Katz is a fantastic practice coach. I have zero concerns with him working with dudes, whether it's in the bullpen or on the side. I do feel though, and I think that unfortunately, Tony La Russa is obviously all decisions start and end with him, but I do feel like Katz either isn't advocating enough, or Katz also is someone that maybe hangs onto the water wagon a little too long with the guys that he works with. He maybe almost trusts them too much, because we've seen it a lot where maybe 2 or 3 at bats sooner they probably should have been pulled, and they don't. And so that's the thing that I think Katz has to kind of work with too. Is but as far as instruction and fixing and tweaking and working on, because again, the bullpen is where you work on the real part of the game. It's showtime when you're on the bump. It's like play plaque. If you're an actor, practice, dress rehearsals, but they're not real. And then you get in front of an audience, it's a totally different thing under the lights. And it's the same thing with his guys. He works a ton, it seems, with these guys, and he's always had a good reputation out here on the West Coast as a high school pitching coach as well. But it's really cool to see him develop these guys because we're seeing it with other guys as well. So he's doing a really good job. He has to be more game aware. I think he needs to advocate. He needs to know when his dudes are gassed. And sometimes I feel like as a coach, it's hard because you trust dudes because you work with them and you love them and you respect them and you're like, he's got this. And then, oh shit, that was like it happened quick. It was a single and a 2-run tater, and all of a sudden you're like, whoops. So that's still something I think they need to work on. But man, Kopech, the work that he's done, you got to tip your cap. It's exciting to watch, and it creates excitement for the game because it's someone that nobody expected, at least as much.
I also think the great thing about Kopech's, at least his performance in this year so far in 2022, is that it really shouldn't come off as that much of a surprise because he was always regarded as like, this is a sure thing, or as close as of a sure thing as you're going to get to start potential starting pitcher. It's just that, he did miss the 2020 shortened season, and then he was basically like a reliever, a couple inning reliever in 2021. So we didn't really, except for like a couple spot starts, I think. But he's always had this in him. But like I said, like he's taken those next steps where he's not just a thrower. He's not just pumping in there at 100 miles per hour. He's learning how to pitch. Even if he is walking guys, he's not imploding. And I think we've actually seen that him progress through that faster because he hasn't had as many just innings in the major leagues, as many starts as like a guy, like Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease all through 2021, he'd still, even when he was like going great, he'd still have those blow up innings. It's like, damn it. And those are kind of creeping back a little in 2022 after his great April and most of May too. But yeah, great stuff from Michael Kopech against the Dodgers. Rough start for Johnny Cueto, first couple innings on during Wednesday night's game. We have a couple. Oh, go ahead, Mitch.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say one last quick thing with Kopech here, too. I think one of the biggest reasons for the turnaround is his maturity level since he entered the organization in 2018. He's a lot more composed on the mound, and I think you've seen the maturity develop, especially like that Yankees start where he gave up the 3 runs in a disastrous inning. The fact that he was able to come back out there, regain his composure, and not give up another hit the rest of the game, I think it speaks volumes to how far he's come. Because remember when he entered the organization, he had the problems with the PED. He punched a teammate. There's a lot of off the field drama, I guess, and they're opting out of 2020. People had questions about that. So everything that he's overcome and how mature he is, I think that's really helped him on the mound this year as well.
Yeah, no doubt. Steve Woods on Facebook. Where is Lance Lynn? Mitch, where's Lance Lynn?
He's got one more start. He's got one more start in Charlotte.
Maybe one more start too. Yeah.
One more start.
One more start. The barbecue is good down there, so I could see him having one more start as well. He's got one more start in Charlotte tonight. He should be up next week with the team.
All right. And then also Steve Woods, a little critical of the big boys.
By the way, tonight
Eloy is glass. Robert is glass. Moncada is glass. Should be
Lynn's last start, by the way, at AAA. Just as a, I don't know if we said that, but
Mitch, Mitch, you obviously watch. I'm assuming you watch the White Sox almost every game they play. What is wrong with you on Moncada?
He is made of glass. I think that is the problem. No, honestly. So we're talking about the maturity thing with Kopech. Like I think Moncada is like the opposite. I think a lot of it too. The COVID thing clearly bothered him, and I think he didn't really recover from that. And from that down season, I think his confidence was shot a little bit. And now you got Berger playing well. Everyone loves the fan favorite there. He missed a couple games to start the season. But even like before missing the games, I don't even know. In spring training, he did not look good. I don't think he had an extra base hit in spring training either, even before he got hurt. So I think it might be like nagging injuries because he just doesn't look right up there. So I don't know if it's in his head or he's just not fully healthy because he's a lot more talented than what he's showing. Yeah. And I think the fact he's out there, maybe not 100%, it's compiling some frustration. Like baseball's hard enough as it is. And then you get in a little bit of a slump. You kind of dig yourself in a hole. Sometimes you press too hard. So I wish I could tell you because he should be a lot better than what it is.
It is brutal. I was looking at the
bad news real quick, guys. Bad news.
What happened, Kevin?
Bad news. Very short night for Lance Lynn.
Uh-oh.
He has just been pulled in the bottom of the 4th inning with nobody out. But don't worry, it's not because of an injury. He got absolutely lit tonight. 8 hits, 4 earned runs, 1 walk, and only 3 Ks. He's now leaving the game with the bases loaded, so his earned runs could actually possibly jump all the way up to 7 for tonight. So not a great last start in Charlotte for Lance Lynn. But it is Charlotte, and it is baseball, which is weird because it's a totally different approach.
I think a lot of times too, you'll see them like trying to work on stuff and iron out things where they're not too worried about their performance. You're going deep in games. So I wouldn't put too much stock in that. Obviously, you want them to do well instead of getting lit up, but I wouldn't be.
But he didn't come out because he was hurt.
Yes,
People
that
were,
is a positive.
Why did he get yanked in the 4th? Well, it was not health. It was just it wasn't working tonight.
He started on the mound.
Exactly. Joe Kelly, speaking of injuries, real quick, Joe Kelly should be back by the end of the month. He said he's been feeling good. He's throwing off a mound today, so Joe Kelly should be back by the end of the month as well.
What was it? Was his a groin injury? What was his injury?
I believe it was I think his was a groin too. That or a hamstring.
Back to Moncada. Before this season, it's weird how like the perception of players goes, because I think I saw the number where like from 2019 up to this season, or even through whenever he came back, I think Tim Anderson had missed more games than Yoan Moncada. Yeah. But obviously, when you think about the two players, obviously it's because one is like the best player on the team and just produces at a ridiculous level. But like no one's saying Tim Anderson's made out of glass, even though through the time period, Tim Anderson has had like a couple injuries where he's had to miss a couple weeks several times. But it's just, it's the nagging thing, right? Just because like Moncada will have like the sore hammy, and then he'll like get pulled out of a game, and then he doesn't play for a couple days, and then you're like, what the hell? And then it happens again a couple weeks later, and then he misses another couple games. It's just, and I think that's always been the case with Moncada, right? Like this isn't like a after COVID thing. Like even when he was doing good in 2019, there was those stretches where like he'd have like a nagging leg injury, and you'd be like, what the hell?
Yeah, or he'd like slide and get up gingerly. But not only that, like Tim Anderson, when he's in the game, he jumps off the page. Like he jumps off your screen, you know he's in the game. There's some nights Moncada will be in the lineup, and it's like a night you'll be driving home for the ballpark and be like, oh yeah, Yoan Moncada was in the starting lineup. There's games he just disappears and he just doesn't do anything. So I think that also compounds it too.
Yeah, heading into Wednesday night's game, I think NBC Sports Chicago put up the lineup, and they put the WRC plus of every player in the lineup for the Sox. And Yoan Moncada batting third with a 15 WRC plus. Like, what? Yeah. I had not realized that he had fallen off that bad so far this year. Let's see, what else do we have here? How's Eloy doing? I know he had the first game, and then he pulled himself out. Didn't miss, but like he didn't play for about a week. Now he's been back. Any word on Eloy?
They're being cautious with him. I don't have an exact timeline with him yet. I know when he got pulled the first time, like doctors weren't too worried because they're like, yeah, this is kind of normal after like a surgery like that. They're just being extra precautious. But he hasn't gotten hurt in any of the other games he's played, which has been good. So we'll see. I think hopefully by the end of the month as well, but like they don't have an exact time on that. One's going to take a little bit longer because I think they want to make sure he's like 100% healthy, which for the outfield, they can afford a little bit. They have a little bit more outfield depth than they do some of these other positions. So they can afford to keep him down there a little bit longer.
Yeah. Speaking of injuries, and we talked about this all last week. I think it came out like afterwards, but like at this point, it's starting to look like just Yasmani Grandal is hurt. Because he's like missing games. He's not getting pinch hit in spots where you think like, okay, at least you'd maybe want him in this situation. Like he's just not playing as much anymore. He's hurt, right?
I don't think so. I just think it's because he's been terrible this year. I wouldn't want to pinch hit him. If there's a big moment right now, as at this moment when we're recording this, June 8th, I would not want him in a big moment pinch hitting. I would take a Jake Berger over him. I would take an Andrew Vaughn over him because Andrew Vaughn's always on the bench for some weird reason.
Sucks.
You got to rest your young 23-year-old.
And Reese McGuire, as far as the catching goes, which is disappointing too, because Yasmani Grandal was one of the best defensive catchers in baseball statistically the past couple of years. But Reese McGuire has been a much better catcher than. And like the White Sox have had problems in the past with runners stealing on them, but some of that goes on the pitcher. They just don't hold runners on very well. But Reese McGuire throws out runners at a higher clip, and that's a problem because the White Sox gave up a lot of stolen bases. Yasmani Grandal doesn't throw out runners at a very high percentage. Reese McGuire does. So I think that's also part of it too. Neither of them are hitting, but at least Reese is giving you some defense.
It's insane to think that maybe perhaps that drop off came so fast and so quick for Grandal. I don't believe it. I don't buy it. It's hard, but as a catcher, it can happen.
Yeah.
Again, just like with a pitcher, every pitcher has a set amount of bullets in the gun. Sooner or later, your chamber's going to run out. And, some people have unlimited bullets and they're lucky and they're blessed and they have a rubber arm. Some people don't. And so you have a limited amount. And it's the same thing with a catcher. You got a limited amount of squats and punishment and damage that you're going to take before sooner or later, the body's just like, I can't do this anymore. And I think with Grandal, what is he, 30? Is he 30 yet?
Oh,
yeah, he's over 30.
33.
Yeah, he's 30 plus, right?
30,
Yeah. So he's in that era where they're starting to look like more like, Mark Brunell instead of, Michael Vick. And so it's, you're dealing with, that part of it too. So it hurts to see it. So, McGuire's been fantastic back there, which thank goodness, right? It could have been a lot worse if Grandal had this. Who was it last year? What's his name? Everyone hated him. Scott Collins, right? Yeah. A lot worse if Collins was this backup and Grandal was struggling as he was, because I think Sox fans would actually probably melt down.
I will say this. I don't think Grandal will be this bad the whole year. He was bad last year at the first half too. Not this bad, but he picked it up near the second half. So I'm holding out hope. The catcher thing is real, especially with you have that many, the wear and tear on the knees. It affects your hitting. So a lot of the power comes from your legs. So we'll see. I'm hoping second half of the season we see, the numbers pick up a bit. I think he can still hit 20 home runs this year. I don't think the average is going to get over 200, but I think he'll still get over around 20 home runs. So we'll see.
I'd like to kind of address this. Steve says, he says in one of his parts of his quiz that they've been brutal. Even watching Grandal looks off. Whole team looks disinterested. So I think I want to kind of address right now is the disinterested White Sox. I think that's way overreading. I think people are reading way too deep into things. It's funny because I think people associate dancing around like a damn circus clown with being focused and being in the game. You don't need people jumping around doing cartwheels to show that they're focused in the game. Some guys are quiet, and maybe this group as a whole, because you don't have Big Baby out there. You don't have Tim Anderson out there. You do have a bunch of guys that have been grinding to keep their careers going. Some of these guys aren't performance artists. They're just out there to play ball. So the disinterested thing, it's not so much that. I don't see them out there not playing hard. I don't really see a lot of circumstance where the guys aren't hustling out or busting ass. But if anything, especially we've seen some of the stupid base running gaffes, it's like tagging up from first when they can, just hang tight. It's trying to do too much because they're struggling. And watching a group of guys that have been given so much expectation coming into the season and not getting it done the way that everybody, including themselves, probably assumed, it's a gut punch, man. These guys are trying to figure out how to get off the mat. And sometimes, when you're a little punch drunk, people just misinterpret that to not being focused or not being interested, which of course then leads to it's Tony La Russa's fault. And I think the disinterested argument is only usually portrayed out and thrown out there by people that think it's Tony La Russa's fault that the White Sox aren't playing well. And yes, he has a major, impact on that in that sense as a coach, but a coach is worth 2 wins max per season. And it's been proven year after year after year. He can't swing it. He can't throw it. He can't pick it. All he can do is try to push buttons, and that's his job. So, they're not disinterested as much as I think that they're just trying to figure out what the hell is going on, because they know they're better than this. And what we're going to see is that second half when they get to that second half of the season is an absolute cakewalk of a schedule.
Yep.
The White Sox, ironically enough, are 12-14 against the teams that they've played this year that are going to be in the playoffs. In my opinion, they're 12-14. And Steve Stone said it best on a post when he responded to me, was that a good baseball team over 162 beats the bad teams like they should, and then splits with the good teams. And that's kind of what they're doing to an extent, but it's the stupid losses to the Tigers and the stupid losses to Cleveland or teams that are bad. They've had a couple of those stupid losses. Those drive you nuts. I don't think that's going to happen nearly as frequently in the second half of the season, though. And I think they're going to start rolling. But 12-14 against playoff teams, that's not too damn shabby. And that's the problem they had last year. They were horrible against winning teams and playoff teams. So a 12-14, if I'm a Sox fan, I'll take that. I'll take that as you got a 50-50 chance of moving on every time you play someone in a round.
Yeah, I mean, considering all the injuries they've had and how poorly they've played, they're staying afloat. It's been a tough schedule. It gets a lot easier. I think they have a stretch starting July 4th where they have 19 games against all divisional opponents. So the division's not good outside the Twins. So the July 4th series will actually be pretty big against Minnesota. But I still think toe-to-toe, the White Sox are a better team. And they're starting to play with some confidence now, too. I think it's a lot of times, too, all it takes is a spark to kind of get things going. And that Jake Burger pinch hit home run, ever since then, they've really been playing with some life. I think that was a huge win for them in Tampa to take that series in general, because it started off pretty ugly. I mean, they got their ass handed to them the first game, and the second game, there's not a whole lot of signs of life. And I think that really sparked them. They played a really complete game in that first game against the Dodgers. So I think that's the wake-up call they needed. And people are going to be coming back. Reinforcements are on the way, and the schedule's a lot easier, as you said. So I think they can turn this thing around.
It doesn't get easy for them tonight because obviously they're playing Gonsolin, going up against Gonsolin, who's been really good for the Dodgers. I mean, Sox fans, take a deep breath, man. The guy's 6-0 with a 1.47 ERA. He's carving everybody. So if the White Sox somehow snake one tonight, if they can somehow get to him, and look at that, Jake Burger on cue, Jack, 3-1, White Sox. He's got 2 hits tonight.
Stud. Now I'm a lot of sweating.
There you go.
We might as well get into it. Jake Burger, once again, just mention his name, hits a home run. So yeah, we've talked about it. He's had every time there seems to be a big moment, he's the guy getting the big hit. I think Mitch, you wrote about it. No moment is too big for him this season. He
had a stretch of 4 games in a row where he had their last 4 White Sox wins. He had the game-winning RBI, and then the one he didn't. He had a huge RBI late in the game, or like early. He had another RBI early in the game. And then last night he had a big insurance run too against David Price. So he comes up with huge hits.
Yeah. So Jake Burger obviously got the playing time with Yohan Moncada starting the year in the IL, getting at bats at DH, and even with Yohan Moncada back, getting a few starts at third. The talk all year has always been, and for a few years now, is like, who's going to be playing second base for the White Sox? There's always fans screaming just like, hey, just put Jake Burger in at second. We talked about it last week. There's times defensively where it looks, it's like, that doesn't look good. Jake Burger at third base, his natural position. There's a story out this week where he was talking about, potentially getting time at second base. He thinks he can handle it. I mean, obviously he's going to say anything possible to stay in the lineup. So obviously he's going to be like, yes, put me anywhere. I'll catch, I'll pitch. Or, I mean, I guess he would be batting if you're pitching, but I'll go anywhere to stay in the lineup. But Mitch, would you sacrifice? Because you're sacrificing the defense, but to keep him in the lineup.
I love. Hey, there you go, Gavin. What's that? His first hit this month. Good for him.
Maybe they're getting to the dude. Maybe they're getting to a Gonsolin a little bit. Hey.
That's exactly. Now starting.
Speaking of Gavin Sheets is the one guy who is not cheering for Jake Burger, because Jake Burger is the reason that Gavin Sheets is going to be in AAA in a couple weeks.
As well, he should, the way he's been hitting. But actually, maybe Josh Harrison at this point, but we'll get to that. To answer your question, I would not put Jake Burger at second base. Now, I think he should stay, because I wrote about this when he first came up and he was hot. Like, there's no reason they should send him back down. He needs to stay in the lineup, especially the way he's hitting. He's provided him a spark. And the way Yohan Moncada's been batting, they can afford to alternate him at third base until he figures his stuff out. But Jake Burger, he's been a sufficient third baseman defensively. I just don't think he's athletic enough for second base. And one of the White Sox major flaws has been poor defense this year. So putting Jake Burger at second base, where he doesn't have a whole lot of experience, he's not athletic enough, I don't think, to play it at the moment. I think that's just a recipe for disaster. Now, I am fine with them getting more starts at third base than Moncada, and the fact that they're DHing him a lot shows that they want to put him in the lineup. So I'm fine with them implementing him however they want to. They can get creative. I don't think second base is the answer. I would actually go with Danny Mendick at second the way he's playing. I think he's a much better fielder. He's just as good, if not better, than Josh Harrison fielding wise, and he's hitting the ball well. I think it's a hot stretch. He's not going to be hitting over 300 the entire year, but it looks like he's figured it out at the plate, and I think he's one of those guys. He's a quiet, scrappy type player, but he's gotten an opportunity with Tim Anderson out, and he's taken advantage of it. And I think he's been playing really well. I actually liked him at the leadoff spot. The 2 games he was up there, I thought he played really well, igniting a couple rallies. And, now Leary Garcia is back in the starting lineup for some odd reason. But out of all the people on the roster, if we're not going to call up a Yolbert Sanchez, Danny Mendick is the guy that should be playing second base, I think, when Anderson comes back.
I think this is kind of interesting too, because it kind of plays into that too. You're talking about, Berger and some of these guys that are with Moncada, like, and you just mentioned Lurie too, is what the heck? You drop Moncada, who rightfully he's struggling, right? You're banging your head against the wall at this point. Maybe the guy needs a little relief, push him down in the lineup, give him a couple more straight balls, and allow him kind of like to relax. And they did it for 1 game, and then immediately back today, Moncada's back in the 3. They dropped him to, I think, 7 last night. Yesterday. And now they put him right back in the 3. Like, what? Like, that didn't help him. Right?
No.
What does that help at all? That's so. That one, I'm curious your thoughts on that. And by the way, it was a 3-0 count to Pollock, and Gonsolin has not thrown a strike in the 2 pitches following the 3-0 count, and yet it is still a 3-2 count. Neither pitch were even in the strike zone.
Ugh.
So strike 1 and strike 2, pitch 4 and pitch 5, where one was actually, it looks like it's about 8 to 12 inches out of the zone. Actually, really bad strike call. So that sucks.
I'm all for a 3-0 green light, but at least to make it a hittable pitch. That's tough. Jesus.
Those aren't strikes. But he didn't swing. It just take strike 1, take strike 2. Like there wasn't green light. The umpire has now called 2 pitches out of the zone to strike. Should be ball 4 and ball 5.
But yeah, as far as the lineup construction goes, though, I think Tony La Russa almost at this point, he just thinks he's like got to outsmart everyone. Everything's a chess match. He wants to be 1 step ahead of everyone. I don't even think he knows what he's doing. And I get he likes Leary Garcia. I like Leary Garcia too, but it's getting hard to defend Leary because he's constantly getting exposed because La Russa overplays him. And I hate it. I love Leary. I don't like trashing Leary, but he's getting way too much playing time. He should not be batting leadoff. He shouldn't be anywhere near the top 5 of the lineup, which is baffling, especially because, like, the Dodgers got shut out yesterday. They basically had the same lineup out today. Like, the first 5 of the order was basically identical. And the White Sox, they look fairly productive yesterday. They had the big 4-run inning, and the lineup's completely shuffled. It's almost like it worked too well, so he had to mix it up. It's baffling. That's one of the big complaints I have about Tony. I think he gets more flack than he deserves, but, like, the lineup thing this year has been – he deserves some of the shrapnel he's gotten from that.
I would have to say, like, the surprise to anyone listening, me defending Tony La Russa about the lineup stuff, even like early on, like when the offense was just, I mean, it's not like the offense has gotten like that much better, but they've been a little more consistent these past couple weeks. But early on, like through May or through April, when they just could not score like more than 1 or 2 runs a game, it's like who are you gonna start when like no one's hitting?
Yeah.
But I do agree the Lurie Garcia thing, because he's been around forever with the Sox. He's like one of the longest tenured players on the team. He's good we've talked about it for years. He's great for the role that he is, which is just a utility, a solid bench guy that you can like plug and play spot to spot. You don't want him playing every day, and you obviously don't want him batting at the top of the order when he's one of your worst hitters. That just reminds me of like when the Cubs were still actually trying to compete. And I hate to pile on, but like shout out to Albert Almora Jr., who's doing great with the Reds this year. But after he was figured out by the league when he was with the Cubs, and like Joe Maddon would just keep putting him in the leadoff spot just because, hey, we put him in the leadoff spot forever. Why would we change this? Like, because he's been bad for 1.5 years. So you can please stop that. We don't want to hate on this guy over and over again, but you're making it very hard for us not to like call this obvious thing out. And but I do agree. The Lurie Garcia thing, man, that's a head scratcher. And again, everyone has their critiques of every manager, every lineup, like every day. Like no matter if you're a good team or a bad team, we see that in Chicago. Like Cubs, they're a bad team. We still complain about the lineup every day. Sox, obviously, a good team who's underperforming. You're competing. You're obviously gonna get mad. with lineup stuff every day, especially when you can see the
yeah.
numbers. It's like,
if you go on Twitter, there's hundreds of qualified MLB managers, apparently, if you look at it. Speaking of which, though, kind of a side note, you brought up Joe Madden. That was the big baseball news this week.
Yes.
He got fired. I'm curious.
Kevin got White Sox fans riled up.
I always thought that Joe Madden was overrated, even with the Cubs. I thought he tried to blow that Game 7 for them. I just thought he's kind of goofy. But as Cubs fans, what did you think of him? Are you surprised he got fired? I'm curious.
I'm a little bit surprised just because, the Angels look where they were at before that 12-game stinker. I mean, stinkers suck and feels like the world's collapsing, but they actually early on earned the right to struggle as well. But it did remind me a little bit. Madden wasn't even with the Cubs last year, but last year when the Cubs were in first place, around now, they no-hit the Dodgers, and then they lost how many games straight? And
I think we're coming up on the one-year anniversary of that.
So, losing streaks suck, and there's a lot of pressure. I think the Angels just suck as an organization. So I'm feeling that the Angels made the shitty decision. Joe Madden is Joe Madden, man. And you're going to, I'm sure that way, unless there was an issue in the locker room, everyone that plays for Joe loves playing for Joe. I can tell you that just from talking to KB all the time. Everyone fucking loves Joe. And so it's not a clubhouse issue by any means. I think it's the Angels probably playing to the crowd and the mob more than playing to logic. Joe Madden has done this enough, and you're not really replacing him with a very good replacement. It's what's his name?
It's Phil Nevin, right?
Phil Nevin, yeah. Okay, the guy that's won a World Series or Phil Nevin. So I think it was a knee-jerk reaction. And you know what, though? Winning spoils fans in a short burst, just like we've seen with the White Sox with the losing streaks and winning streaks. It also can, again, with the losing streak, can spoil. We've seen how White Sox fans felt during that really bad, was that 8-game losing streak or whatever, or 9-game losing streak earlier, followed up by a 6-game winning streak. It was like two sides of the same coin. And so with Madden, I think the dude's I don't think he's out of touch. What do you want him to do? Like, I just don't get. I don't get this stuff with everybody. Why does everybody have to dance around, scream, and just show their ass to be doing their job? Like, I don't get that part of it. Oh, he's just so calm on the bench. Okay, like, there's a million ways to skin a cat. There's a million ways to lead, and go flying off the handle is actually a fucking stupid way to keep a locker room together, because you're unreliable and you save it for when you need it. You don't just blow up every fucking time you have a bad thing. You make them matter. And fans don't get that, because every day is a reset. They think it's PlayStation baseball, and you can't do it that way. You save your big moments, as I call it, the Bull Durham moment, where you get everybody in the shower and you throw all the bats in the shower and you start yelling at everybody and you lollygag around the infield. You give that whole whatever speech you. Trust me, coaches practice these things. Trust me. And you go and you give your speech and you kick them in the ass a little bit. But if you constantly are kicking people in the ass every single day, you got to cut them. Not the coach, the players. That's a player problem. That's a heart problem. That's a character issue. And so I think that the biggest thing with Madden is he's not disconnected. I just think that right now, the Angels still weren't necessarily built to win yet. Like, as good as top heavy as they are, talent wise, they're not really. They're not better than Houston. Sorry. But the expectations increased with that great start.
Yeah. I think when the news first came out, I would say I think I was a little surprised, just because, I don't know, like, veteran manager, they had success in Tampa Bay, took it to a World Series, lost to the Phillies. They had a couple great years in Tampa Bay with him as manager. But right now, quickly going through it, maybe not that surprised, because I think that 2022 is the final year of his contract. You are expected. Yes, they don't have as much talent overall, especially on the pitching side, as Houston entering the season. Like, they were never like the favorite, to win the AL West. If anything, they were like a just fringe, like, wild card team. But I think now thinking about it, it's the year 3. There, you always hear teams that do have at least some talent. They start off great. Besides this now 13-game losing streak, I think, heading into Wednesday, it's like just give him the kick in the butt, I guess, because you're probably not going to renew him anyway, because he's like one of the oldest managers in baseball now. maybe the oldest, I think. I forget about Tony La Russa. But I think Joe Maddon's like was not anymore. Well, one of the oldest managers, second to La Russa in the league. Like, you're probably not going to renew him after year 3 if you're not going to win anyway. You're going through a tough stretch. I don't know. So I guess maybe not that surprising. But in terms of like his, what I thought about when he was with the Cubs, just how Kevin, you brought it up, how just the way he went about things. I hate the whole hard ass manager coach stuff. That's why I never really liked when people were saying like, "Oh, Joe Girardi to the Cubs." I'm like, no, I don't need that. To me,
that's worked out for Girardi.
Yeah.
He's despised. His former players hate him. We've had Chasen on here.
Yeah.
I mean, come on.
That stuff doesn't come off genuine to me. So I always like that Joe Maddon just was always the same. He like Cubs. It was frustrating. Believe me, when in 2018, when they were still a very good team, but like there was times like they were getting blown out, and it's like, hey, are you going to do something? Or say something? Bench a guy? Do something? But no, I like that he's always the same. It's like, hey, we won 10-0. Good. Celebrated for half an hour. Move on. Hey, we fucking lost 12-1 to the Cardinals. Sucks. Like, be mad about it. Be sad about it. Cry. Do whatever for half an hour. Let's move on. So I was like that mentality from him. Yes, the World Series, Game 7, those decisions. Chapman, the Game 6, pitching him. It was obviously dicey. But overall, there was always stuff that you could say about Joe Maddon with the sign, because near the end it was like it sucks, because think about it. We always think about like with Theo and like all those players, like these guys, they're the first team, they're the first group that won the World Series for the Cubs. They're going to be gods forever, right? But like think about from 2016 through when Joe Maddon was let go at the end of 2019. There was a majority of the fan base was like good. Or like finally, or like late, like get out of here. We don't want you anymore. And it was because like there was frustrating things. But hey, I thought it was fine.
Although, do you think with Maddon too? And I think I honestly think this is a big thing. He lost his bad cop. Maddon plays good cop so well, and he lost his bad cop when Davey Martinez went to the Nationals. I think Davey Martinez brought out the best in Joe Maddon, because he allowed Joe Maddon to be Joe Maddon. But Davey Martinez will get into somebody's ass a little bit. But also Davey Martinez is a coach that you go drink with. He's your buddy that you fear and respect at the same time. And he made for a great bench coach under a guy like Maddon that will bring out a damn petting zoo and a magician. And he's going to have some vino with you in his cool hipster trailer called the Cousin Eddie. He's going to do all that stuff. And then if you get out of line, and that's what I thought Cairo was going to be for the White Sox too, is the guy that gets into everybody's ass for the guy. Because again, yes, they are older. You let them be their older selves. The older that you get, the less piss and vinegar you have. It's just. I mean, it's probably the fact it's the testosterone loss too, probably. But you need to have somebody that's going to go out there and light somebody up on occasion for you. Be your muscle, if you will, your bad cop. And I think when he lost Davey Martinez, I think that obviously affected Joe Maddon, and we're seeing it with I think too with Tony La Russa. I don't think Miguel Cairo. I think Miguel Cairo might be someone that should get the axe or looked at as far as doing their job, because if there's a lack of discipline, I mean, it's not on the old guy to go running up and down. And we've seen him run. We saw him run last year. We want to try not to do that again when he has to go so bad. So you need someone that's going to just lay into somebody on occasion, and that's that guy's job. So I think that Maddon, the same thing. He's been kind of operating without a bad cop last couple of years, and I think it makes a difference when you can have the dudes respect you and love you all you want, but there has to be some consequences and repercussions for your actions, and sometimes for your failures too. Like, you don't want to punish a guy for just it's not getting done, but sometimes you've got to send a message.
I almost think him and Girardi were kind of similar in the way they got fired, because it's almost the consequence of signing these big free agent name players, because you have all these marquee players. Like, you got 2 MVPs and Mike Trout, Shohei Ohtani, and Rendon. And so you're expected to win, when really the roster really wasn't all that complete. The pitching staff kind of stunk. The bullpen wasn't all that great. And the same thing with the Phillies. You got Real Muto, Harper, you got all the Castellanos they just signed. So on paper, it looks like they should be a Schwarber, another one, but like, it's not a complete team because they're pouring all their money into these. So as much as the Sox fans complained about the lack of free agents, which I did too. I think there's some guys they whiffed on. That's what it's a team game. You need a deep roster, especially like bullpen and pitching. And so that I think they were kind of casualties of that as well, because fans expected, hey, they got Mike Trout. They should be winning games. And that was the punishment for Joe Maddon.
I'll say this about the Phillies, by the way. The Phillies, I mean, it didn't happen to coincide with I don't think it even coincided with the firing, but I mean, the addition of Bryson Stott to that lineup has obviously paid dividends. If you look at their record right now, they've won dating back. I mean, we were just talking about those. They lost to the Giants on the 31st. I can't remember what day Girardi was fired, but they beat the Giants on the 1st. And since the 1st, they are 5-0. And now they're up 5-0 on Milwaukee. They're on the verge of winning their 6th straight game. Bryson Stott was called up, June 1st. So they actually added to their lineup a guy that we've talked about on this show 1,000 times as a kid. I've coached against and practiced with alongside. I'm friends with his mom.
Are you on his stat page, Kevin? Do me a favor. Can you pull up his game log, Bryson Stott's game log?
Sure, yeah.
For the Phillies. Because I think this is going to be second baseman, right?
He is baseman, yeah. Let me see here. Stats.
Because I do believe he made the team out of spring training for the Phillies. Struggled badly, very bad. First time up in the majors. But I think he was like hitting the 100s for a while.
He wasn't. So he started his first game. He was 2 for 4 with a double.
So what were his numbers up to when he got sent down?
So he got sent down April 19th. So his numbers, he did. He had a really jump. He jumped out. It was 2 for 4, 0 for 3, 0 for 3, 2 for 4. And then he went 0 for 12, 0 for 16. And that 16th game, or that 16th he was sent down after he had one at bat. I think he pinch hit against Colorado, and then they sent him down that night. So
he hasn't come up. He didn't come up until June 1st.
He was back up on May 8th.
Okay.
And was kind of up a little bit there and there, like 2 hits, and then go disappear for a couple games, and then 2 hits or 1 hit, and then 2 games out, and then 1, and then he had another spell where he was like 0 for like 12.
Yeah.
But then they brought him up, and now how he's. I mean, I guess he's been on the squad a little bit longer. I don't know why I felt like he was.
So, I just wanted to bring it because I do remember him that he started off. He struggled, or he had a lot of struggles early on, and then he was sent down, and then brought back. And I slowly want to transition this into some Cubs talk and just.
Can I correct myself though? I thought he was called up June 1st or May 31st. That's apparently when he woke up.
Okay.
He'd been getting consistent innings, but since May 31st, he's 3, 5, 6, 8. I mean, tonight he's already got. He hit a homer tonight. So he's got another homer and 2 RBIs. I mean, he's in this month. He's hitting 263 with 2 homers, 6 RBIs, couple walks, couple stolen bases. So in the month of June, and then you add in that other game, the last game of May, he makes a difference. I mean,
so we brought this up before he was injured. He's come back from the injured list, and he looked good for a couple games, but then just a lot of the same. Nick Madrigal has sucked really bad this year. We've had the conversation back in April. Should the Cubs send him down to AAA? Obviously, he was coming off his surgery that ended his 2021 season. Obviously, big expectations going back to his Sox days. 4th overall pick. Everyone's saying he's gonna hit. He's always gonna hit, no matter what. He's always gonna hit. You wait for the defense to come along and other stuff, which is fine. But the one thing you always hear: great hit tool. Doesn't strike out. He's going to hit 300. Don't worry, guys. He's hitting like 205. Again, not a big sample size. He's been a lot better for more than he's been bad throughout his first, I think it's 113 games now. The Bleacher Nation wrote a story Wednesday morning just looking at what kind of contact is he making. And this, again, you never want to root guys, especially younger guys that you expect to be part of your next contending team, which when the trade happened with the White Sox, that's what Nick Madrigal was billed as. Like, hey, this is going to be one of your pieces for your next team down the line that's going to compete. Nick Madrigal right now is averaging any ball he hits is going 100 feet.
He's got an average launch angle of -0.9.
Just straight into the ground, Mitch. Straight into the ground. I know you talked about last week that you're a magical believer, and I'm not saying that I'm not, but man, it's getting tough to defend the move. Just him. I'll ask you first, Mitch, and then Kevin, you can jump on after. If you were the Cubs at this point, he's played like 30 something games, I think, this year for the Cubs. Again, he's hitting like 200. His strikeout rate has doubled, I think, from his Sox days.
Yeah, it went from 8% strikeout rate to 14%.
So almost doubled. Which I mean, 14% is still way below league. He's still way or above the league average, but he just looks overmatched right now. Now, my argument has been, I'm fine either way. If you want to keep letting him up, because again, it doesn't matter for the Cubs. They're not competing this year. If a guy does bad, it's okay. At least you're seeing what he can do. But I also don't mind if they do just send him down to AAA. Hey, get some confidence in you. Fix whatever is going on with you, because I hate to say it, he just looks like a guy who isn't going to be in the league in a year or two. That's how bad it's gotten with Nick Madrigal.
I'm going to disagree with you on the send that down thing, by the way, just to kind of interject.
What the
hell else do the Cubs have to play for? The Cubs aren't winning shit this year. So why not let the guy just go out there, play the string out so you can see exactly what you have at the major league level? Because you're not we know that they're not trying. We know the Cubs aren't trying. It's blatantly obvious they're not trying.
But see, that's why I brought up Bryson Stott. Because Bryson Stott struggled. Different situations. Bryson Stott was the first time that he's been in the majors. But he made the team, struggled for a couple weeks, got sent down, got called back up. He's been doing a little better, and then he's been hot.
He struggled for like 15, 16 games after he got called up. They let him just play. He went over. If you look at, he was called up like early May, and he played all the way through the month of May. Terrible until May 31st.
That's true.
Why? Because you swing out of it, and that's the thing with Madrigal.
He's not swinging out of it though, Kevin.
Well, how many? You said it's been 30 games.
The last two games,
and that's the thing. I will give him. I'll give him the benefit of the doubt because he is coming back from like another injury. Like he had the back strain, so he missed a couple weeks. So obviously he's not going to be in the full routine back. He's not going to be in the same rhythm at like batting, but man, that's the thing for me. He just looks overmatched by.
I would say for two things. One, you definitely don't send him down. As you guys said, they're not trying to win this year. I think some people were fooled by some of the offseason moves. Oh, it's a retooling. No, it's a rebuild. Like it's what it is. They're not winning anything this year, like you said. So he should be getting. This is the time to see what you got. Give him his at bats. That's number one. Number two, he's coming off the injury. He's never going to hit the ball hard. He didn't even hit the ball hard when he's with the White Sox. That size, he's not going to be like smoking them at over 100 miles an hour. But he makes contact with it. I think the timing got disrupted a little bit with the injury, but he also doesn't have as much lineup protection as he did last year. And in the first 2 years.
He's got Heyward.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean,
he's got the best hitter in baseball, Christopher Morell, behind him.
In front of him. He's got Heyward in front of him. Poor Nico Horner has Heyward behind him. My bad.
It's still, I still just don't think doesn't have the same lineup protection there. So I give him some time to get back into the groove. Now, the strikeout rate thing's a little bit concerning, but like once he starts making contact again and getting back into the swing of things, because his whole career he's hit, like everywhere he's went, he's hit, even the first 2 years with the Sox. And he started off slow last year too. Not this slow, but he started off pretty slow. And by the end, before he got hurt, he was batting over 300 and he was hitting the ball well. He had a couple home runs in there too. So give him a little bit of time. I still think, he can turn this thing around.
Without checking too, because one of the big knocks is, of course, is Nick Madrigal's defense too. Is what people have been expecting. How many errors do you guys think over and over? Do you guys think without checking? How many errors do you think Nick Madrigal has in 2022 so far?
Maybe 1 or 0.
I'll go 3.
0. He has not.
Good for Nicky.
2022. Now. He still gets criticized because the other day, that chopper by Paul Goldschmidt, that ball that he probably chopped 80,000 feet into the air, that there's no way anybody's going to field cleanly and get a throw off. But Madrigal comes up and tries to do just a quick redirect and kind of make a do or die kind of, God forbid Goldschmidt trips or something, and you might still get the out. And he still gets shit on for being a bad defender. I'm like, that's a do or die play. That doesn't really, he's making the plays that he's supposed to make. He's got 0.
And a lot
better than what, maybe he's not making some of the non-routine plays, which annoy people, but he's played solid defense with the
he's
Cubs.
been solid.
And that's
the word I use.
that's the thing too. Like once you get that stigma as like a bad defender, it just kind of becomes lazy criticism at that point. People just assume it. They see Nick Madrigal, oh, it's bad defender. So a tough play like that, it's like, oh, it's the bad. Like Tim Anderson had the same thing. People call him a bad defender, which he did like a lot of errors, but his defense turned around the last 2 weeks before he got injured, and he was making a lot of tough plays. So, they're not going to make every routine play out there. But Madrigal was an excellent fielder in college. So, and he is a natural shortstop. They kind of moved him over to second, so it's not his natural position. So, I think he'll be fine. I think the Cubs got a good player on their hands there. Now, is he going to be like a superstar? No, but he'll be a solid guy that'll bat over 250 every year and play solid defense at second base.
He's just not getting on enough for us to determine whether or not he's fixed the base running issues.
Yeah, that's fair.
Base to fuck up before we can judge.
I do wonder, outside of just like the physicals, I mean, like the injury stuff, like then just the mental stuff. This is like the first time ever in his life, probably, that he's like been bad.
Yeah,
like because even when he did start off slow last year with the White Sox, like it seemed to turn around like at the end of April, beginning of May.
Not even that too. Confidence wise, you have to remember, he is a first round draft pick on a contending team, and he was told that he's going to be like one of the future. He was the future second baseman. That's what everyone had, and they're like plans. Nick Madrigal is going to be the future of the second baseman when the White Sox are winning World Series, and then he got traded at the deadline. So that shouldn't have that could not have helped his confidence either. Like, wow, I didn't think I was going to get traded even, and then you kind of come back from injury, and then you have a lineup with no protection in it. There's a lot of things working against him right now.
No doubt. Yeah, no, see, that's the thing. It's like, so like it's a confidence thing. So that's the only, or not the only reason, but like, get some AAA guys, get him batting, get his confidence up a little, Yeah.
Setting him down to AAA, sending him to Iowa will really get his confidence up. Dude, I just got traded from a contender, and now I'm playing in Iowa.
Kevin, show the numbers to when the Cubs fucked Frank Schwindel, and then how he's been ever since he had to ride middle class in the middle seat to San Diego. You got to scare him sometimes, Mitch.
Right? Maybe.
Sometimes it's the get on an airplane, fly to Iowa,
fake him out.
I think
have somebody get COVID.
Back on the next flight, give him a damn middle seat in coach or something, and then he comes back and he's just fine.
No, now that you mentioned it, did they do that with Schwarber too?
Sure, yeah. 2017. So 2017. So Schwarber made his MLB debut 2015 was fantastic for those like final 2.5 months or so. Obviously got injured in 2016, coming back for the World Series. 2017, he has all the hype in the world, right? They start him off the year as like the leadoff hitter because like the Cubs just had no one to lead off. He stunk. He was like putting up Grandal numbers. He was hitting like 160. He was walking a little, but like there was no power. It's like, what the hell is wrong with you? They sent him down for like 3 weeks, I think. He came back. He was solid. Like he wasn't like great or anything, but he was like solid again. He was contributing again. He was back to like his rookie numbers. And I was like, all right, cool. They've done to other players too. Ian Happ. Ian Happ he was starting most games in 2018. He didn't make the team out of spring training in 2019. Yeah, he didn't get back up to the Cubs when the Cubs were struggling a little in 2019. He didn't get back up to the major leagues until July. So but again, that's the old regime though, so I don't know how this new regime.
And they were contending too, so I think that's why they have a little bit less patience. I think that'd be the only difference. Now they can afford the guy to stink it up a bit.
Although, what was who was it against on that Sunday night game?
For
Wainwright. No, Schwindel got sent down though. The Cubs played that night on Sunday Night Baseball because that was the night Schwindel was supposed to be answering a bunch of questions on the live broadcast.
Who were they playing? Yeah,
I can't remember who it was. Like, was it the Dodgers?
I think it was the Dodgers. Maybe
the Dodgers.
Yeah, it was the Dodgers because the Cubs played Sunday Night Baseball in Chicago, and then they had to fly that night to San Diego. Yes.
Okay, so where is that game though? It says May 7th, and then no game on May 8th.
Yeah, it was the Dodgers, according to Mr. Martinez.
Well, Schwindel didn't. I don't think Schwindel played the next game, did he?
Or Dale, maybe he just didn't play. Okay. So so we're looking at that. I mean, he's got 2, 4, 6, 7, 10, 11, 13, 17, 21. Oh God, what am I looking at? Okay. I mean, yeah, since Aldo pissed on him in our chat. I mean, in the month of June, he's hitting 333 with a .593 slugging percentage, and so he's got a .394 on base percentage. He's having a really good June, but I'd say, I think we talked about it a little bit in this show too, with compared to Wisdom versus Schwindel. I always thought that Schwindel was always going to be more inclined to snap out of it and go beyond being a 220 guy. Whereas Wisdom, I think, is who he is. He's just going to hit a home run or he's going to disappear for a couple names. And so that's his thing. But Schwindel, I think, is a professional hitter. So yeah, he's actually, especially in the month of June. He's got 16 total bases in the month of June. So he's putting the ball in play and he's putting the ball where they're not. And he's so his batting average went from 220 to start the month to he's at 240. So not too shabby.
If Frank Schwindel, since he was basically optioned to AAA, and then the Cubs had a mini COVID outbreak, and they had to bring him back.
Yep.
He's basically put up the numbers that, the numbers haven't been that great. No one expected him to repeat his numbers from last year. Those were. I was looking at him again. I was like, this guy did what?
Hold on. Nobody expected it. The Cubs tried to sell Schwindel as expected to put up those numbers like he did last year. That's what they legitimately do. The articles coming from the water carriers like the Tribune and those gents was Schwindel's going to carry the Cubs. Bleacher Report. I want to say Bleacher Report. I'm going to go there too. Mike, sorry. You guys were selling us that Schwindel was going to be a 310 hitter that was going to be like he was last. Everyone from that group, that was the gaslighting. There was the Cubs sold Wisdom and Schwindel as like Brizzo.
It's kind of like that scene in Moneyball where they traded all the good players, and the next year they have like the big David Justice banner. It's like that with Frank. Everyone's like, all right, yeah, like come on now.
Frank Schwindel.
That's Frank Schwindel.
But his numbers, because I think he's hitting since whenever that was, May 8th, since the San Diego series through now, he's hitting 260 with a 330 on base. He's slugging a little more now. So that's basically what at least I thought he would be this year, which is a solid production from first baseman, and he's just perfectly replaceable. That's just what Frank Schwindel is, and it's fine.
He's a veteran bat you want off the bench. That's what he is.
But that's the thing. For this Cubs team, it's just hey, it's a guy that it's fun to root for. That's all these guys are.
On a good team, he's a great role player. He would be a great role player on a good team, and that's I love him. He's a professional, mature, and a good clubhouse guy. That is your first right-handed bat off the bench. That is a spot starter when your real first baseman needs a blow on a day or two. So, and that's unfortunate for Schwindel too. It sucks because he is awesome, but people wanted him to be something more, and the expectation was that it was going to be so much more. That struggle was such a massive letdown, and I feel like he almost bought into the clippings as well. And it was like a shock to the system that the league adjusted. That's what the league does, and he struggled a bit, but he's a professional hitter, and I think talk about a guy getting the swing out of it, and he's kind of swung out of it. It's the only thing that could really, repetition is breeds habit.
So the other big, rumor surrounding the Cubs this week was Bob Nightingale, USA Today, wrote a story quoting an anonymous GM saying that the Cubs were guaranteed to sign one of the big three free agent shortstops in the offseason. Talking about Trey Turner, Xander Bogaerts if he opts out, and then Carlos Correa if he opts out. And at this point, it seems pretty obvious that those two players will opt out and join free agency once again, along with Turner. And then there's also Dansby Swanson from Atlanta, who's going to be a free agent. So Kevin, who do you want? Let's play in this fantasy world where the Cubs actually try to sign good players in the offseason and spend money for the first time in a while. Who do you want?
This is such a hypothetical. It feels like an actual, such a hypothetical. But, I do like the way Correa plays the game. I think he's a winner. He's tasted quite a bit of success in his career. He's also seen, been on a part of a really rocky, era or moment for him and his teammates. And I think he's shown to be, like him or not, he's shown to be a guy that really will go to the mattresses for his own teammates. So that always sticks with me as well. He was out there front and center the whole time, all that stuff with the sign stealing stuff and wearing it in a sense, but also being a little bit, combative for his own teammates. Not, you respect that. You hate it if you're not with them, but if you're in that clubhouse, you love that guy. So I think that right there, along with obviously the potential offensive production, but he does have a Soriano concern to me, which is it is a longer contract, and you give a guy like that, how is he going to age over the next like 6 to 8 years? So he's going to want like an 8 or a 9 year contract. He's not going to go for the 10 now because he got that 1 year. He's getting his 1 year with the Twins. So you're looking at an 8 or a 9 year deal, which means the Cubs will offer him 4. And so
Kevin, come on, we're in fantasy land. They're offering him an 8 year deal at least.
They'll blame
they
the
had losses of biblical proportions. They can't afford them.
And they'll just blame Scott Boras, the boogeyman, because it's always Scott Boras' fault. It's not the fault of the Cubs. We tried to sign Correa this offseason. We offered him a contract for 7 years, but he changed agents. Yes, because you didn't follow up. You didn't think to say, hey, but I lost this.
You didn't get the phone number.
I sent this new phone. Who dis? So
the phone number.
You're like, I forgot. What's this guy, Scott Boras? What's it? Look about. I can't spell his name right. I can't find him. Never mind. Don't call him. No, I think Correa would be good. I mean, Trey Turner's cool too. Bogarts is interesting just because. I mean, how old is he? Because he has a little.
I think he is
right. He's 29. So
going to be 20.
And the Correa is he 31?
No, Correa is only 27, dude.
Oh, so there's no concern there. Like
Kevin, that's why I was pounding the table. Like you are getting a guy who's still entering his prime years. Get me
because he's a guy that's going to end up like a Manny, and that was a DH too. A guy that can keep hitting even when he's 37. So he could have DH, especially the DH now. The Cubs fucked that one up. Just give him 10 years. Why do you just give him 10 years, man?
And that's the thing. Like everyone said, we are a Nico Horner show. Love Nico Horner. He's been fantastic at shortstop, answering all the doubters. And I'll hand up. I had doubts about his arm playing at shortstop. He's been fantastic at shortstop. He is also a Gold Glove caliber defender at second base. If you do sign, let's say, any of the shortstops, again, fantasy land for Cubs fans at this point. If you sign him for like Correa, let's use Correa as an example. You can easily move over Horner to second base, have Correa at shortstop when he starts to lose the athleticism. Hey, third base exists. Move him to third base. When he doesn't have it anymore and he's 35, hey, the National League has the DH. Move him there. So like for me, it's a win-win no matter what for a guy like Correa. And even like Turner. I know Trey Turner. I talk about like a great leadoff hitter that the Cubs just haven't had forever. That guy's fantastic. His defense has been a little poor this year at shortstop. But hey, if he struggles, move him to second. I don't care. Like
you made a really great case just now of why the Cubs need to let Nick Madrigal play this string out. Because if they are going to go after one of those 3 shortstops, that means that's with the expectation that Nico Horner is going to have to shift over to second. And you want to know that, do you have to do that? If you find out that Nick Madrigal could be a dude, maybe you don't have to specifically feel like not getting one of those 3 shortstops is a loss, because you can obviously transition the money to another couple arms in the starting rotation, or to the a more consistent bat at third, or you can get creative. You might be able to convince I don't know who, or you can move Nico to third. I don't know. I mean, you've got options. You got to see what Madrigal has to know if you need to shift Horner over and fill that shortstop spot, because you don't need to act in desperation. If Madrigal was a dude at second, there's no look, Nico Horner's playing out as one of the best shortstops in baseball right now. I mean, he's grading out defensively, and obviously his offense has been fantastic. So you don't have to feel like you've got to. You can figure out a way to like, instead of feeling like you have to pour it into the shortstop spot, maybe you pour it in here and other spots where the Cubs also are still lacking. There's plenty of holes. There's plenty of holes.
Yeah.
And so that would be an absolute luxury. But also you let Nick Madrigal play it out, and he's boner and he sucks. Then we got to land one of these 3, and now we can shift Nico over to second. Problem solved. And so I think that stresses the need to see what Madrigal can do. But I think that like you're saying, I don't think the Cubs need a leadoff hitter anymore. I feel like
they don't. They have a guy who just cannot not get on base. He lives on first base. So he just can't. Mitch, you're gonna get a little mad here, but let me live in fantasy land here for a little bit more. Best case scenario for me is Nick Madrigal balls out last of the year, just hits 350, stops striking out, looks great. He's somehow he's in the Gold Glove race at second base, and then the Cubs are like I love it. You know what, Nick? Let's send you back to the team who drafted you and the and the White Sox. Rick Hahn talks to Jerry Reinsdorf. Reinsdorf's like, "I'm sorry, I'm still not going to spend on pitching." And then the Cubs wind up with Lucas Giolito for Nick Madrigal after signing Carlos Correa. How do you like that, Mitch? How do you like that?
God. Punching a sourdough loaf of bread in San Francisco right now because he leaves for just a little bit and he's not here to actually stop Aldo from dropping this shit on you.
Hey, no. Zoe's the number 2, I guess. Nick Madrigal guy. So he'd love it. Why wouldn't he love it? He finally gets his second baseman back. No more Josh.
For Lucas Giolito, though, I don't know. Although the White Sox are having problems. I don't even know if they're going to pay him. So
I mean,
we'll see. He's going to be expensive.
The White Sox have never paid like John Diggs and.
No, I can't
John
keep
Diggs.
Supporting this idea. We're going to cut this off right now, but no shot. No shot. But you know what? For Nick Madrigal's sake, I hope he gets in a position where he's
I do too, because that's the thing. Like Kevin, you said if he's just balls out and he's like, all right, hey, I am good. And the Cubs are like, yes, you are good. It does take less pressure off them to go out and spend big on a shortstop. And then, like how you said, Kevin, you allocate those resources that you're going to use for a Correa or a Turner, whoever you were all in on before, and you can go out and get a horse for the rotation, get 2, get a corner outfielder,
that'd be nice.
Bullpen. That's the thing. The bullpen, I know they've had their struggles like these past couple weeks. I'm never worried about the Cubs bullpen now. They've done it like 4 years in a row. They just like get guys you've never heard of, minor league guys that aren't like top prospects, and they just always end up being solid. So I trust them, especially with their new, their new system of player development in the minor leagues the last few years. I'm 100% confident that they can just, on a year in, year out basis, produce a solid bullpen. So Kevin, let's talk about the best player in baseball for the past 3. Nationally. I'll cut it down to the National League. Christopher Morell has given Cubs fans something to be happy for, because honestly, I know that Wilson Contreras right now is like a top 5 hitter in the National League, but every time he does something, it's just like fuck, he's going to get traded in a month. Like, that's all I can think about. I can't even enjoy his good moments because all I think about is like, they haven't talked to him about a contract extension.
That's stupid.
His arbitration hearing's tomorrow.
Fantastic, because we all know what happens in those. That's when the team just shits on you.
This is going to be
anything bad that you ever did. They're going to bring it up. So
if the Cubs are going to extend him, tonight would be the night that they do it. Tonight, the night before.
What are the odds on that?
Avoid that kind of harmful, because it is. You hurt a lot of feelings get hurt in those things. So if the Cubs aren't inking him tonight before arbitration starts tomorrow, or if they don't ink him before the actual hearing, I can say that he's probably as good as gone, because they are about to hurt feelings. And Wilson ain't gonna forget that shit.
That's the thing. If the Cubs somehow do end up signing Contreras to an extension, I think, to me, that does signal them actually wanting to compete in 2020, because you don't just sign a 30-year-old catcher for he's going to get like a 5-year deal.
And you don't let a catcher as good as him go if you intend on competing now.
Yeah. So then that would be like, okay, no, they are actually serious. I know this is like year fucking 4 of, they're doing their homework on the free agents, on the free agent shortstops, but maybe they finally do it. So that'd be great. That would be a great sign.
If they weren't planning on contending, which I do think they would be a sign that they are contending if they re-sign him, though. It's never a bad idea to have a former World Series champion of his caliber in a locker room with a bunch of these young guys showing them the ropes. Actually, you saw Christopher Morell is one. He had a huge at-bat in the 9th inning a couple of days. I think it might have been last week. And he saw him. He looked over, and Wilson Contreras told him to calm down, take a deep breath. That's huge. And I know that's why the White Sox have kept Jose Abreu around as long as they did, even during their rebuild, is because you need one of those guys in the clubhouse to kind of show the guys the ropes. And otherwise, it's going to be kind of another embarrassing exit for one of their core players. I think he's earned a contract extension for the Cubs. I don't think there's any reason they should.
A bunch of those dudes did last year too, but
yeah.
The thing with Contreras, like, although you said it perfectly, two things that I'm looking for with the Cubs that tell me they're in business for next year. Obviously extending Wilson and then not trading Marcus Stroman. Those are the two things. We will know the Cubs are out until 2024 minimum if they also pull the trigger on the Stroman move. Because I have heard from multiple people that are talking about it, saying that was the Cubs' intent. It's just a higher form of Pittsburgh Pirates minor league contracting, which is what they do a ton. They fish, and then they sign these dudes. They make the team. Guys that perform, they trade them off. That's all they're doing. But it's because they give them like really nice workable contracts. And you got Stroman, who's got an opt-out after next year. His contract screams, if it's not really working, we're going to go ahead and because he has a no trade clause, we're going to go ahead and at least make you more profitable for us. But these types of moves, and I think, although you would agree, these aren't where you trade for teenagers. The Cubs should not be trading for teenagers if they trade Willie, if they trade Stroman or whoever. They need to be trading for guys that are close. Like now it's no longer teenage time. And guys like, you don't want like a 17-year-old or something. You're trading for 23-year-old dudes like a Bryce Ball that are close. And Bryce Ball is a good example of he's close. He might be ready now.
Could we interest you in a Mika Rodolfo, perhaps?
All right, Mitch. Well, we get to have the fun because we're not competing, Mitch. You guys are at least competing this year. Trying to compete. This is all we have, Mitch. Just made up trades for Lucas Giolito.
We'll give you Wilson Contreras from Montgomery.
Ooh, I don't think we can do that. Honestly, contending Mitch says pull the trigger, but down the road that has some ramifications. So
the extremely just frustrating thing talking about anything that has to do with the Cubs' future, short term or long term, is just that. I mean, for his faults, and yes, there was a lot, especially at the end with Theo Epstein. You always kind of knew where the Cubs were, what their direction was, what they were kind of planning. Since Judge Hoyer's taken over, and again, this is the whole thing because ever since last year. Ever since the trade deadline and like the months after and in the offseason, we were told, 2022, we're going to try to compete. No, you weren't, or you aren't, because you signed, you signed Seiya Suzuki, solid, and then you signed like a one of the mid-tier top free agent starting pitchers in Marcus Stroman. Cool. And then you didn't do anything else. Like that is not you actually wanting to compete. And we still have the talk of like, are they not? What is this? We're not going to call this a rebuild, but it's a retool, but it's a move around. It's I don't even know. It's so annoying now because we know what it is. It is a rebuild. It can take 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. We don't know. It sucks because that's the thing. So even with Wilson Contreras, because there are paths where like, hey, let's say they do trade Wilson Contreras. But like if they would tell us like, hey, no, if they would have said in the last year after the trade deadline, guys, 2022, we're gonna be bad. We're gonna be bad. We might sign a couple key guys, but like we're probably gonna be looking to flip those guys at the deadline. Mm-hmm. Obviously, we would have been mad because you expect one of the top markets in the entire country to compete year in and year out. But we would have been like, okay, cool, or not cool, but like, hey, you're being transparent. You're telling us what to expect, right? But we get the lawyer talk. We get the it's this, but no, it's not that. But we're kind of doing this, but we're kind of doing that.
Or the infamous email from ownerships, the infamous ownership email where he literally said, all resources will be spent towards competing or whatever. And
then so like even if this year, like let's say if they would have done that though, they've been more transparent. Like yes, obviously we would have been mad with the Contreras trade talks are gonna pick up steam. These next 6 to 8 weeks, but if they would have been like, but hey, after 2022, we're going all in again. We've been like, all right, there's obviously we would have had the same thing, like show it and prove it, but at least we would have had a little more confidence. Like, hey, they're not directly lying to our faces. Maybe they are actually going to spend. But right now, it's tough to not just be cynical all the time. And I totally get it, Kevin. Like, I know, like, it's just so hard every day. I try to point out some of the positive, but it is hard because it's like, well, what's the end goal here? Just to are they going to try to compete next year? I have no idea. And that sucks. You should be able to, as a fan base, you should know the direction that your team is trying to take.
The problem is they will make money no matter what, so I don't think they gave a rat's ass because they know at the end of the day in June it's going to be take your shirt off and have a keg party in the bleachers, and they're going to sell out regardless of what product they put on the field.
And you get plenty of meatball, and you get the water carriers from the media doing it all because the Cubs are notorious for yanking access for people that
do have that, but guys, Wrigley Field is not selling out. It is not selling out. Period. They are now, and yes, they're still going to make money because they're a fucking baseball team. Owners wouldn't be owning something if they weren't making money. So it's not like the Ricketts are.
They're still in the league,
despite their biblical losses. But right now, the Cubs are offering you free alcohol just to go to games right now. They have this new promotion out where it's like Mondays, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays. Buy a ticket, you'll get a free drink.
And yet they're eighth in the league in attendance with this crap product. They're actually higher than the league in attendance. They are higher than the Mets, who are having a great season. They're higher than the Giants, who usually always Boston, Philly, Milwaukee. Obviously, the White Sox, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, by about 10,000 more fans per game. When you got the Nationals, I'm looking down the list of, then it gets to the shitbirds. But yeah, the Cubs aren't.
All right, I take it back then. What are you Cubs fans doing? I've said this all throughout the years with the Bulls fans being mad and justifiably so. When did we see change? Like when they were getting embarrassed and you were getting like half empty pictures out of the United Center. Cubs fans, come on now. And I get it.
A lot of them that show up that aren't even real fans. There's a lot of them that show up for the Instagram. It's true. It's the tourists. A lot of tourists want to show up. It's all like the sixth graders that want to post it on their Instagram. It's a lot of, or the drunks that sitting in the bleachers. So I think
have to say that I think there is honestly, there is a lot more.
Yeah,
I want to fight against it, but there does seem to just be more of that in the bleachers this year.
I'm going to tell you this. We can put we'll put this attendance joke shit to bed that Cubs fans throw at White Sox fans, because I also think the White Sox fans have a higher baseball IQ than Cubs fans. Myth is fucking dead. Just the last 2-3 years, especially, they're just meatballs in every fan base. Let's just be honest. And I've seen more over the last 3 years, and the White Sox are actually pretty good. That tell me that there's no difference. It's just
the only fan base I will
more
always
of them because there's more Cub fans. That's all.
The only fan base I will always shit on, and the reason I will continue to do it is because they do, elevate themselves as something beyond everyone else, is Cardinals fans. So I will always shit on Cardinals, who are the best fans in baseball. Fuck you. But yeah, so I titled this episode, and we'll get to it now. An hour and 20 minutes in. Are the Cubs about to DFA Jason Heyward?
Ooh.
So the Cubs have guys coming off the injured list. That includes Seiya Suzuki, who had the sprained finger. They had their game postponed Wednesday night in Baltimore. They have a day off Thursday, and then they're going to play the weekend against the Yankees in New York. David Ross said Seiya Suzuki might be coming back as soon as Friday. Obviously, the Cubs are not going to send down Christopher Morell, who's been hot. I think it's now, 21 games, Kevin? Straight? 21? Getting on base to start off his MLB career, which started with a home run. The Cubs also
yesterday started with a home run as well.
Yes, that's right. I hope we don't drink some now. Fuck. It didn't happen last week, though, so I'm feeling good about that one. There's Clint Fraser, who struggled to start the year. Then he had his appendix removed, I think. So he missed some time there. He was in the minors for a bit on his rehab, and he's come back. But Jason Heyward also came back, and he just keeps being in the lineup, even though he's really bad. There is a theory by 670 The Scores of Matt Spiegel. Hey, maybe they're playing him so much right now this week because, they're showcasing him a little bit. They want to do something right by him, I guess. I don't know. Maybe they feel they owe something to. He's the one who owes everything to the Cubs for paying him that enormous contract.
But they got a speech out of it in the World Series that allegedly hyped him up. So
it's worth the 100.
The rain delay speech.
If you would call a 140 character Twitter post a epic speech, I guess you could call it an epic speech.
Hell yeah.
Sorry.
So there's that. It's like, hey, maybe the Cubs are on the verge of DFAing Jason Heyward. What do you think, Kevin? Are they about to do it? Or
I threw this out there because I know Bleacher, whatever it was it Bleacher Nation or whatever it was, or Bleacher Report or whatever, they were asking that question, like, what the hell's going on? And I was thinking more optimistically. I was thinking perhaps they've had a talk with Jason Heyward, and he's agreed that if they can find a really good destination, he's willing to waive his no trade clause. And perhaps they're finding possibly with Wilson, once Wilson completes his arbitration stuff tomorrow, they got a number. I think maybe, this is what I wanted them to do with Schwarber. This is me being an optimist. Maybe they found somebody that might be able to take Wilson and Heyward, and Heyward would waive the no trade clause. Obviously, because you're pairing it with Wilson, you obviously the Cubs would take on some of that salary, take off probably a chunk of the salary actually to free up that space. But maybe they came to a point where Hayward's like, yo, I'll take a trade. I'll take a few, I make sure it's not a shit spot, but he'll go to a contender, obviously, because that's who's buying right now. And Heyward would be a very valuable defensive replacement late in the game. And he's not a bad 10th or 11th guy off the bat. And perhaps Heyward sees the writing on the wall and says, why not throw me into a pennant race? Let's go win a World Series with somebody. So maybe perhaps that's what they're showcasing. And they're hoping to get a little bit more out. And he hasn't been terrible these last few days. I mean, yesterday he, I think, got a hit or two.
Hot.
Yeah. So perhaps it's working, I mean, the negative, the pessimist would say, yeah, maybe there's the swan song and they're trying to let him get one last goodbye. But I'm trying to be optimistic. Maybe perhaps Heyward sees the writing on the wall and says, hey, I know we got these young guys come up. Thank you so much for what you've done for me, Cubs. You've paid me to basically be bullshit and not very good for multiple years now. And I've made millions of dollars, hundreds of millions of dollars at this point almost on this. So yeah, I'll take a trade. Just send me to a place. Maybe if you want to package me with someone, fine. But I think the Cubs can make it. This is what the Cubs failed to do with Schwarber when Schwarber was that cap value back in 2019. They could have possibly paired those guys up too, but maybe it was Heyward saying no. So maybe perhaps they got Heyward to say, if it's a good spot and I like it, I'll take it. And then
that's the thing, though. I think that'd be a terrible move because right now, if you think about Wilson Contreras, a 30-year-old catcher, Cubs fans need to lower their expectations of what a trade return is going to look like. Right. If you're adding Jason Heyward to that, you're not getting anything back because you're going to have to pay all his money. You're not going to get anything back.
The Cubs are taking on the salary.
That's true, but like you're lessening what you can do the exact same thing of letting Jason Heyward. He can pick wherever he wants to go. So like if the team still wants to trade for him, like you can just DFA him. He clears waivers. No one's going to pick him up because no one's going to want to pay the rest of his money. And then he can be like, hey, sign me for the league minimum now. Cool. So I wouldn't pair him up in a trade because you're just driving the value down on anyone that you pair with. But that's the thing. Like they can accomplish like something good for Jason Heyward by releasing him, because then he's just free to sign with anyone. He can sign with whoever he wants.
Mm-hmm.
Mitch, White Sox need a left-handed right fielder.
Absolutely not.
Well, he's a DFA. He's a cheap
minimum.
Right up Rick Hahn's alley. He's got some untapped potential. It's just like Nomar Mazara.
It is. Oh man,
World Series.
Nomar Mazara was only 24. Man, come on, give him another 2 years. The whole Jason Heyward saga. I was thinking back about it earlier this year. It would be one thing. Like when the Cubs signed Alfonso Soriano, they outbid themselves. Like I think they outbid the next team by like $40 million. It's like I think when Soriano signed, it was 8 years, $136 million. When they signed Jason Heyward after 2015, I think the Washington Nationals, they were like willing to offer 10 years, $200 million. The Cardinals were like in the mix too for like that amount. And the Cubs ended up going 8 for 184. So he picked a little less money, obviously more per year, because he liked the Cubs, he liked the team, thought it was his best chance to win. And then year after, I don't know if it was the initial change or the little tweak that the Cubs wanted to do in his swing to get a little more power. But ever since then, it's just every offseason, you get a story out of spring training. Jason Heyward's been doing this to tweak his stance. Jason Heyward's been doing this to tweak his swing. Jason Heyward's been doing this to not roll over. Jason Heyward's been doing this to get a little more loft in his swing. Jason Heyward's, it's just every year, and just it kept getting worse. There's like one stretch where he was good, which was in 2020, the short year. He was good for like a month and a half.
Yep.
That was the peak Jason Heyward offensive performance for the Cubs, and it's so frustrating because it's not like we're talking about. I know, Kevin, you have the story where he chewed out KB for swinging at 3-0 pitch. Hilarious. Like, Jason, shut the fuck up. Like, yes, a guy hit.
Wait.
Like, I know you're jealous.
Doubling off the wall with the bases loaded on a 3-0 pitch. Let's make sure there's more context to that.
Jason got jealous. He's like, hey, if I suck, we all suck.
He's just grumpy. He's a great dude.
But that's the thing. Other than that, because that's the thing. The Cubs have benched him before.
Mhm.
And this is a guy who is making big money, who was a good player at one point. We've never really heard any other like bad stories.
No.
We haven't heard that he's a bad teammate.
No,
we haven't heard him like do anything off the field stuff. If anything, he's
great off the field. He's a huge community guy.
Yes, he helps out the community. Great with charities. It seems like a stand-up guy.
Is this This is the last year of his contract? How many years?
No, there's still 2 more years, man.
At $25 million per year.
Yeah, there's still like that's the thing. No matter what the Cubs are, that's the thing. A trade at this point, it's never going to happen. They're just going to have to eat all his money, and you have to, because there's no point in playing him. No. He is now 32, I think. It is just. It's going to be one of like a great case study in what a guy who was a solid player, a solid to good player for 5 straight years, signs a big free agent deal and just becomes a bad player. Just like it's not like he like, oh man, this guy underperformed. Like Soriano, you can say through the totality of his contract. I know 07 and 08 he was great for the Cubs, but like for the entirety of his contract, he underperformed. Mm-hmm. Jason Heyward he just became a bad player. He went well below the underperformer. He just became bad.
Offensively. I got to keep offensively.
But even defensively now,
defensively
now, he's kind of just average. The first 3 years, he was still great. I will give you that. Right field, he was still great from 2016 through like 2018. The last couple of years, he's graded out as like a below average to average defender. In right field, in center field, he's below average. It's just crazy. And again, I wish he was a dick like Dallas Keuchel, because it would be easier.
That'd be easy. Well, do you have 3 outfielders that are significantly better than him at this point? I mean, I know he's been like.
So again, the age stuff is different because he's played a lot more. So there's long. So Clint Fraser, I've been on Clint Fraser since spring training.
Well, it's that guy. I agree. He should be getting playing
time. He just needs to get playing time. Yeah,
they wanted to give him a flyer, so yeah, that's fine.
Yeah, you need to find out. There's he came up for like a week or less than that. Nelson Velasquez, who's been killing it at AAA, and like he's like another, like I think he's like 24, 25 maybe. He should be getting some playing time. So like there are guys, and obviously Seiya Suzuki coming off the injured list. Ian Happ, if he's not traded, he's still a good, solid player, so he's going to be playing in left field. So, like, Jason Heyward just has there's no purpose in him playing.
He's actually graded right now as the 68th best outfielder in baseball defensively.
It's not.
Behind Rafael Ortega, by the way.
Yeah, and Rafael Ortega, I would say, like, is just average.
There's no good solution to it, but considering they're not trying to win this year, it's a rebuild. I don't think it'll make much sense to DFA him and eat all that money for no reason. You might as well get something out of him because he is a positive locker room guy. You know, I mean, somewhat of a big name.
DFA make him the coach.
He's gonna. I don't think that's gonna happen.
He earned that salary.
It's just
like Roger Dorn.
That's the thing, because like, so the Cubs are in like. Transition year. Let's just put it that, it's rebuild. Well, let's just say transition year, right? So you want to give as many guys as possible just flyers. It's like that. Having Jason Heyward on your team prevents you from doing that. That's like the main reason. Like, yes, he is a great in the clubhouse. There have been guys who've spoken highly of him throughout his entire time with the Cubs. But at this point, like, he's still going to get paid. It's not like the Cubs are going to cut him and he's like, oh, well, there goes your paycheck, Jason. He's still going to get that money in his bank account every 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, that's why I think you hang on. At least you're getting something for all that money you're paying. I think you try and find a trade partner at this point.
It's just
But,
his no trade rights ruin everything. He wants to just sit on his ass. I mean, that has to be one of the major reasons why he hasn't been able to be dealt in the last couple of years. Is he's telling him no, no.
Well, I don't think that many teams are inquiring about him to begin with, the way he's been hitting. But like, if he can raise his trade value, I could see him like waiving it to go to a contender, and I think that'd be better than the situation he's in now.
Maybe he goes back to Atlanta. Does Atlanta need an outfielder or something?
They're playing pretty good as of right now. I don't know if they
got hot. I don't know. So what? We're now past an hour and a half. Anything else, boys?
Nah, I mean, the Cubs are in the midst of this long stretch still of after, now Baltimore's done, not until August. Obviously got banged today, but Cubs have a brutal stretch again. I mean, when you look at the Cubs schedule right now, we're about to see the Cubs. I mean, they're in the that section. They're in the midst of that really rough time of the season, obviously, but I mean, in the sense that they are now about to, what do they got this weekend? The Yankees, right? Is the Yankees
yes.
Yankees start Friday? And when you look at the Cubs schedule, the cupcakes they were supposed to get, the breather was supposed to be the Orioles. They lost the Orioles yesterday. Jesus.
Our guy Keegan, we jinxed Keegan.
And so you got 3 at New York, then you got 4 at home against the Padres, and then 3 at home against the Braves. So their next, what was that? 2, 9, 10 games are not easy. And so it could get a little bit uglier. They're already 10 games under 500. And then they will get the saving grace of, just like the White Sox have it as well, the saving grace of the NL Central. They get a 4-gamer against the Pirates, who have actually given them fits this year, which is funny. But then they go right back to it, Cardinals. But then they get the Reds. So, I mean, the Cubs are about, this 10-game stretch. I said if they finish this 10-game stretch, I would be, at this June stretch or whatever we want to call it, 500, that'd be really, really admirable. But they have done pretty well. But then losing to the Orioles kind of really, they've lost 3 in a row now. So it's 4 in a row. No, 3 in a row because they have the doubleheader. They won game 1 of the doubleheader, right?
Yes.
So yeah, it's 1, 2, 3 in a row, and then the Yankees are probably going to sweep their ass.
On the other side of town, the Sox finishing up against Dodgers on Thursday, and then they host Texas for 3 games over the weekend. 3 in Detroit, and then 3 in Houston next week. Back home against Toronto and the Orioles. Then back out west against the Angels to end the month of June, and then San Francisco that first weekend in July. Mitch, overall feelings, like you have to feel kind of pretty good after what almost seemed like it was going to be a disaster out east.
Yeah, no, the vibes have been positive. We got some role guys that are stepping. I mean, the star players like our Yoel Moncada, Yasmani Grandals, obviously it has been the season we've hoped, but the guys are stepping up, which is positive to see. The pitching is held up. The starting pitching I've had no complaints about all year. It's been very solid. And it's only a matter of time before these guys hit. Yasmani Grandal is not going to hit this poorly the rest of the season. I think at some point he heats up. Jose Abreu is beginning to turn into the player we know he is. So it's a matter of time. The schedule's going to get easier. I'm feeling positive here. I think they're turning things around.
Sox very lucky that they're in the AL Central because
absolutely.
Shout out to Zoe.
Yeah.
Shout out to Zoe, who is in San Francisco right now. That's why he can't join us this week. He actually went to was it Rockies Giants on Tuesday night.
The New City Connects were, I think, out there, weren't they? Yeah. Or was that the game before? I can't remember. It might have been earlier.
But he was out there trying to recruit Carlos Rodon back to Chicago.
It's a good one last night, too.
People. They
was.
People.
Pinch hit home run to win for the Giants or the Rockies.
Yeah.
He also got to see his boy Jock Peterson, longtime favorite player who he did not want in the offseason, and now Jock Peterson, probably an all-star for the National League.
Jock didn't want to sign with us. He could have signed with us. We offered him a contract, and he chose to go to the Cubs. So it's screw him. We don't need no Jock.
Hey, Jock Peterson, 2-time World Series champion, right? Or 1 time? 2-time? 2-time.
2-time. Dodgers and then Dodgers and Braves.
Yep.
2 in a row.
Back here. 2 in a row. Yeah, that's right.
He's magic.
Everybody live bet the Giants.
Yeah, go Giants, Joe. Giants. I don't think I'm going to win my Cubs win the World Series bet that I put down every year. So.
A lot of time, Kevin. Right? Are we still in the lot of season left territory or no? Are we past that?
Wait, what?
Are we past there's still a lot of time left in the season? Or
Nah,
no?
not till after the All-Star break.
Well, for the Cubs, yes, they're out of time. But for the White Sox, no, they have plenty of time.
I wish
They're
the
only
Cubs
getting back
season
to the wild
ended
card,
after that first series against Milwaukee. It was great. They had a 667 winning percentage. That's in
on
baseball.
fire. God, do you remember how excited everybody was after that weekend? They're like, oh, Cubs are back.
So yeah,
Like,
the Cubs can actually hit good pitching now. Look at them. And then
Whoops.
Cubs actually not good. All right. So for everyone listening, thanks for sticking around. Again, check out Sports Mockery, sportsmockery.com for all the latest on Cubs, White Sox, Bears, Bulls, Blackhawks as well. I'm Aldo. For Kevin, for
Smash
Mitch,
the like button. Smash the
smash
like
the
button.
like. Yes. If you're watching on YouTube, like the video, share it with your friends, family, everybody else. Leave us a review on what is it now, Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. Share it with your friends as well. Maybe there'll be some giveaways this summer. Never know. But be well. We'll see Zoe back next week. See what kind of weed he brought over from California. And we'll see how high he gets. Goodbye.